right, everybody, welcome back to Straight Axle Dubs. I'm Axel with my dad,
Mark.
and we're going to be going over some tips for new Volkswagen drivers. I've been a Volkswagen driver for about 5 years. I've owned this car behind me 5 years this year, and so we're going to go over some things that I thought were helpful when I was learning to drive these, and that you might also find helpful. No particular order, it's just kind of things to be aware of and things to know when you drive a car from the last century.
Yeah. So like the first one is, just be ready to break down. It's gonna happen. And
It's happened a lot.
Yeah. And every time we go on a road trip with a group of people, it seems like one person has some issue that, and we always get them solved.
And,
but there is an issue, and you can't predict it sometimes. Or good maintenance. But yeah.
And you also, like, going along with that, I've owned this car 5 years and I've been through 4 accelerator cables in that time. So it's, knowing the symptoms. Of course, if you've broken an accelerator cable or a clutch cable before, you know how it feels. You push your pedal down and it just falls.
Yeah, there's a problem with the accelerator too, where it exits the tunnel at the pedal, and it eats cables. So it's a known problem.
It's a known problem, and it's something I carry at least 1 or 2 with me, so I can throw it in on the side of the road if I need to, and I'm always ready to have something happen.
So what are you gonna do, like, before you go on a trip? What's the first thing you do?
Fill up with gas.
Okay, that's a good idea, because you ain't gonna get nowhere if you don't, or well, not as far. But when you go out and look at your car, you're getting ready to take off. This is something that in modern cars they got this thing called TPMS, which is just really an annoyance. At least in every modern car that I've owned, it tells you. Sometimes it'll tell you one tire is low, but it doesn't tell you which tire, or you get in and you start driving and the light comes on or it flashes and you don't know what it means. It could mean it can't communicate with the sensor, or the sensor could be telling you the tire is actually low. And anyway, so when you go out to your vehicle and you're ready to take off, always do a visual, look at your tires, see if one's low, or see if someone came out and didn't like your old, polluting vehicle and flattened one of your tires, or put a BB in the air cap and screwed it down so it create a slow leak.
Yeah, and like a modern car, it'll tell you, hey, your tire's low, but something like this, a slight pressure loss is going to happen with temperature fluctuation and with the weather. But if you drive on a tire that's flat or very low, you are probably going to destroy that tire, and if you don't catch it in time, you can destroy your rim as well, and then you're out, a couple $100. Whereas if you catch it, like you run over a nail, which has happened a lot, you can catch that. They sell patch kits at pretty much any auto store, even Walmart. You can get a patch kit, patch it yourself, or if you're not comfortable doing that patch, you can, if you have the tools and the means to, you can take the tire off, and most tire shops will patch it for pretty cheap. Or if not, if you have, like, I bought tires for this car from Discount. If I were to get a nail and it's not repairable, they replace the tire and you only have to pay, a few bucks to replace a warranty, as opposed to $200 for a tire, which is a pretty good deal.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, if we tell you make sure you got gas in the car, but sometimes your fuel gauge they don't work right.
Or you don't have one.
Or especially in the earlier cars with the
reserve kicker.
Yeah, that or the mechanical fuel pump, or fuel gauge. They can get stuck, or the tip of the ball breaks off the tip, and then you've got nothing. And
right.
Your gauge will stay where it was when it broke. And that's you can be frustrated to think that you do have gas and you actually don't. Or
you think, man, I'm getting really good gas mileage, and you're not.
Yeah, you've just sucked it all out, and it's you're on fumes, and then you need something to be able to put gas in your car. And if you don't have a little gas can, you can always use a plastic cup or a aluminum soda can to put some gas into, hopefully, get you started, and maybe drive to, because 12 ounces of gas could get you, a couple miles, and get you to a gas station.
Right.
and you could potentially siphon that from someone or whatever.
Right, and the thing with the jerry can too is get one that seals. It sounds weird, but sometimes you get older jerry cans or like the metal ones, and the seals wear out, and then it could be venting fumes. So if you have like if you have a bus or like if you have a roof rack on your Beetle, you can always strap it to that. Because it's safer to have that than to be carrying it in the cabin, or like if it were to spill or like something sparks and hits it. But yeah, that's another thing. Oh, on a long trip or typically daily driving, you don't really need to carry a gas can. But for like like we went to New Mexico a few months ago, and most of the group had at least a gallon or 2 jerry can to get gas, because we were in the middle of nowhere, and the last gas station we were at had one pump that was working. So you always want to have something to be prepared.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, as you grow up in your life driving Volkswagens, you're going to meet people and make friends. Here in Texas, we have something called the Texas Heirs List, and it's people that you can look at wherever you break down. You can call these people, and they'll either come help you or point you in the right direction to find help. And of course, and your friends, you put out a post and say, "Hey, I'm broke down, and I'm at mile help. Marker 123.
Right.
This is what I need." And see if someone will get a hold of you and bring you something you need. Yeah, I heard of one guy that he lost his the alternator pulley went out with him on a road trip, and he's in the middle of nowhere and and some guy brought him one, and paid the guy $40 for a $12 alternator pulley.
Right.
But
it's a convenience.
Yeah, and it was an inconvenience for the guy to bring it to him too. But that $40 is nothing when you compare that to possibly getting a tow or whatever.
Or that's another thing too, is being in this hobby. You're gonna meet people just about anywhere you drive these cars. Gas stations, you'll get stories of people that have owned these cars or grew up around these cars. And that's the other thing too, is we're very fortunate, at least in our area, to have a very good group of people with the air coolers and old Volks and everyone around there that my dad's known these people since before I was around. So we've all grown up together, and kind of you help each other out. Like if someone needs something, you try to, okay, I have that, but what do you have that I may need? And you help each other out as much as you can. And if even if you don't have a part, like, hey, this guy might have one, so here's his info, or this person also might have something, or here's a shop that might have something, which air-cooled shops are getting a lot more uncommon throughout the days.
Right.
But just a good set of friends, because I've gotten bailed out of situations with this car where someone had a tow bar and we were able to hook the car up and haul it home, as opposed to me waiting 45 minutes for a tow truck at least with AAA. Just that little bit of time and that little bit of known people can really save you sometimes for getting out of a bind, or just even getting a little bit of help tuning your car. Like, hey, I need help with something.
Yeah.
People are very willing to help.
And actually, you brought up a good point there, that having AAA or towing insurance as part of your insurance plan, we've used it on our old cars more than any of our new cars. One time I was driving my notchback, and a guy cut in front of me on a bicycle, and I slammed on the brakes and my leg got wet. So
brake line popped
a brake line, and luckily I was right at a parking lot and was able to roll it in there. But yeah, it's a scary scenario. And,
losing all feeling in your brakes, especially with this car, the notchback, which is serving as our tripod right now. With it being a single circuit, you pop one brake line, you lose everything.
Yeah.
Whereas like a dual circuit, you can lose a front brake line, like your front driver wheel, and still have your other 3, which isn't a great situation to drive home on, but you can at least limp it somewhere to, if you need to get a tow, or if you're close enough to home and that you can use your engine to slow you down, or your e-brake, if your e-brake's good, just getting somewhere. And
you can crawl home if you can, if you're
close enough
on non-busy streets.
Like AAA, I've had to get this car towed a couple times, and they're always pretty good to us about getting there quick sometimes, and helping out. And or like I mentioned before, having a tow bar and a truck with a trailer hitch. or an SUV or a van or whatever the hell people used to tow these things. There's some times where like I mentioned, it was going to be too long to wait for a tow truck, and so I called Jason, old Volks TV, and he had a tow bar and a truck, and he came and got me, and we towed the car home, as opposed to, let me call AAA and try to deal with insurance, which isn't terrible, but it's definitely a process because you have to go through their, jump through all their hoops to get a tow, and they might say, hey, we're not available for another hour and a half, sort of thing.
Right, and that brings up another point too. That's speaking of brakes going out, when you're following someone, first of all, don't follow too close. Leave plenty of room to stop, because we've got Flintstone brakes.
Right.
And
you learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I was driving down one of the busy roads here in Austin, and a guy in front of me, slams on his brakes, and I hit mine as hard as I could, and it ended up kissing his bumper and screwed up my bug pretty good, and didn't do anything to his truck.
Right.
So,
and because you learn I learned in driving school, you learn a safe amount of following distance. I always give that add a little bit to that with Volkswagen, like we say, drum brakes, which for the time these cars came out, they were fine. But now,
because everybody had them, everybody stopped that slow.
Now with discs, the thing about a disc compared to a drum is drum brakes create a lot more heat a lot more quickly than a disc, and the heat in a drum is held in, as opposed to a caliper and rotor where it kind of has space to cool off.
Yeah,
so
it's a little more airflow on it.
Just be careful, leave some stopping distance. Always be vigilant. Okay, I see that person, slowing down. Like, there's some times I've seen, even in one of our modern cars, where there's a sudden stop, and if people know that, hey, someone else might not see this, to hit your flashers or hit pump your brakes so people see a flashing light, because people drive distracted a lot, which is another thing to watch out for in these cars. Everyone on the road isn't really looking out for the other guy anymore, which kind of sucks, but driving one of these cars, you kind of have to drive defensive and be ready to, not, I won't say cut someone off, but always be aware, because it's kind of like a motorcycle where you're not seen as well, where, having a good set of lights and, like LEDs, or, like little, like reflective, like the slow moving vehicle magnet, that can really help you on a trip, or just if you're driving to work and it's dark, in the morning, so if someone sees you and you see the vehicle's moving slower, and they know, hey, I'm not going to come up on this guy going 40 when I'm going 70, sort of thing.
Yeah, and the other thing too is know your car's limits, especially if you're on a road trip and some guys are going faster. If there's two guys going fast and there's 10 that don't want to go fast, the two guys are going to slow down to keep up, or to let the other 10 pace with them,
right?
Just because they want to be part of a group. I mean, that's the whole reason you go on a cruise or something,
right?
But also just in your own drives too, you don't want to do burnouts at stoplights just to get across the intersection faster than someone else. And assuming your Volkswagen could do a burnout,
it's a good point, because I mentioned our New Mexico trip. We had some guys that could do 60, 65, 70, and then some people could maybe do 60, 55. That's a whole thing too, is just knowing your limits. And of course, these cars are old. They were designed 80 years ago, and so if you're going on a trip more than a few hours, stopping every hour and a half, hour or so, 2 hours, to let the car cool off a bit, bathroom break, whatever you may need, gas, food, drink, whatever.
Yeah. And you get out and stretch, and it keeps you alive too,
right?
Mentally.
Drive, we did our New Mexico trip. That first day of driving was 11 hours, and that's, we had a few breaks in between. But if we were to just drive 11 hours straight,
you get there and you're beat.
And we're still tired, but you still have energy because you stop. You stretch, or you eat lunch, or you take a longer gas stop than usual to just relax and give your car a break and give yourself a break, because you don't have any gauges really to let you know what's going on. You have your speedo and your gas gauge and maybe a tach, so you don't know what's going on in your motor, and if you don't know what's going on and you're pushing your car too hard, you can very easily mess something up. Whereas if you take a break, you can get more longevity out of your motor and out of yourself on a road trip, whereas you can make it a more enjoyable drive.
And the other thing too is if you do break down, it's nice to have some spares. We mentioned the accelerator cable was a problem in Axel's car, or a not a problem but a potential problem.
Right, or like a fan belt. Your most common problems are probably going to be a belt, maybe an accelerator cable, clutch cable. There's Gary. He's one of our good friends. He carries a lot of spares, and that's good. We don't know if you're ever going to need everything that you carry, but I have an old Samsonite suitcase that's pretty full with tools, spares. I have 2 accelerator cables, clutch cable. I run electronic ignition, but I have a spare. I have a distributor, or I have points that I can throw in and get off the side of the road, because you never know what's going to fail or what might. A set of plug wires too. Those like on my car within a Baja exhaust, sometimes a wire can end up resting on an exhaust and burn through, and then
you shorten it out,
and then you're getting a
sparking
misfire
to your exhaust, and then you need a plug wire.
Right,
but,
and so just always carrying a good set of spares, and a spare tire too. That might seem silly, but
if you're going on a road trip, you definitely want to check your spare before you
make sure it has
off.
air. Like his car, his Beetle, the spare tire in that car is 26 years old. From the 25th, the date code, the DOT code is the 25th week of 2000, and so that tire you can get home on it probably, but I wouldn't,
not at highway speed, or I wouldn't take it at highway speeds.
If it's a spare, I just use it to get off the side of the road, like get to a tire shop or just get home or get somewhere safe, because a shoulder of a road, especially like if it's getting dark or if if it's bad weather, you want to not be on the shoulder as long as you can.
Yeah. And you mentioned points. It's good to have if you're running electronic ignition, they do die, and you want a set of points. And there was one guy, we were at a camp out, one of the guys that met us at the camp out late because of what I'm going to tell you. His the phenolic, aka plastic piece that rides on the cam.
On the cam and the distributor.
Yeah, the distributor cam, it broke off, and so he didn't, so his points were always closed. The car stopped running, of course. So he found a little pebble on the side of the road and wedged it in to the points and made that his phenolic piece to get him to the campsite. Yeah, and if he would have had a set of points, that doing that, having a rock, rock's kind of like sandpaper. You grinded down the cam on your distributor
cause other problems.
Yeah. So, but he only had another 10 miles to go to get to the campsite. So and when he was there, someone had points that gave him, and he was able to replenish them with the parts he used. But he was able to get there by coming up with the ingenuity of having put a rock in there.
Or people have broken accelerator cables and using a hair tie or a small piece of rope, or I've seen a lot of weird things used to patch something together. Like in Footloose, he used a rope as his accelerator cable because he didn't have one. You can come up with some really ingenuitive stuff, and I wouldn't use like a rope as your gas pedal long, but you can use it to get somewhere safe, where you can have a safe space to work on it. Even a gas station parking lot,
Right. So the other thing too is if your starter goes out, almost all these cars are manual transmission. Know how to push start a car, and
you can do it by yourself, but it's a lot harder.
Yeah, it's good to have a hill. And
Right.
reverse is the lowest gear in a Volkswagen, but I would not suggest
trying to pop start it. Reverse.
You can do it if you have to, if that's the direction your hill is in, but don't make a habit of it, because it's a I think it's a brass gear.
And so it's softer, and you
the
can
leg
destroy
gear,
it very easily.
you destroy it, and it's not a good idea.
Which I have a video on push starting, but basically you want to have your key on so your coil's powered. You get rolling, second, because first is also a very low gear. You're rolling in second, and you kind of wait until your speedometer needle starts lifting, because that's when your car's got a decent amount of speed, and then you release the clutch. And I don't know how exactly it works.
Just turning the motor, and
it's getting the motor
with
turned.
the starter. The transmission's turning the motor instead of the motor turning the transmission, and hopefully your all your electronic or your ignition's in good shape to make the vehicle start.
Or possibly the screwdriver trick to
arc the starter,
arc the terminals on the starter, or there's guys I saw a YouTube video of someone with a 36 horse using a belt around his pulley to start his car, which you can do that, but
I've actually seen someone do that before.
and if your motor's got decent compression, it makes it a lot harder. Because if that motor, if it kicks back on you, it can hurt.
Yeah, it's because you wrap it around the alternator or generator pulley in that case, being an old 36 horse, and he used a cinch ratchet strap, but the ratchet had broken, and he said to get it to work he had to basically paint one side of it with contact cement and let it dry so that it would get enough friction.
Right.
Not just friction against the pulley, but friction against itself. Because you wrap it around there as multiple times as much as you can to get a good yank on it and spin the motor enough to get it started.
And then our last tip, I think number 10, is static timing. So we talk about points, and if you run points, if your points gap closes, like your phenolic piece breaks, it's going to change your timing.
Or wears down, yeah.
Or it wears down, it'll change your timing. So it might not change it by a lot, but it can change it enough to where you start to notice your car running worse. And so static timing, it's kind of a weird, I don't say weird, it's kind of an interesting principle, but you want to have your motor, I think the static timing on these is 8 to 10 degrees, depending on your motor.
Somewhere in there will get you running.
And so you get it to 8 to 10, it's before TDC.
Yeah, it's always, timing is almost always before TDC because you want to send the spark out before the piston reaches the top of its stroke.
Right, and so
that's a way to
you get it at 8 to 10, like 8 degrees before TDC on number 1, and then you turn the distributor, and you want to have a test light connected to the negative. The clip on your test light goes to the negative on your coil.
The green wire.
The green wire for your points, and then the tip, just put it on the ground
somewhere, yeah.
And then you turn your distributor, and the light will go on and off, and then you want to get it right to where the light, just before the light turns on, because that's when your points are about to spark and create,
That's when they're closed.
That's when they're closed, and that's right before they send the signal up through your rotor, into your distributor cap, through your wire, to that cylinder. And static timing, you get it set at 8 to 10. Like if you have a degree wheel pulley, like I have on this motor sitting behind us, you can time it with a light once you have it static. But if you have a stock pulley, you don't have those marks, so you can always use.
You've got one or a couple marks on a stock pulley that will get you. And if you look at it, if there's 2 marks, you use the one that's looking at the pulley. It'll be the one on the left that you want to use. Sorry, the one on the right that you want to use to set it to the split in the case, because that'll be before the other one. One of them's TDC. If you've got multiple of them, one of them's TDC and the other one's the timing mark.
Right, but yeah, that's I think that's pretty much everything on our list. This is kind of just an approximation of stuff we know and we've learned.
Another thing, if you don't have a feeler gauge to set your points gap, if you have to change those on the road, you can use, assuming people still have any of these, a business card, or maybe a credit card's a little too fat.
But you can,
that'll get you close.
Right.
The credit card's way too fat. But but you could fold up a piece of paper a couple times to make it the thickness of what you would expect a business card to be.
Or a matchbook, no one carries matches anymore.
You can't even find matchbooks. Yeah, we're getting really old here. Yeah, and maybe you have your flint and your rock, and you can make a spark that way and replace your spark plugs. But no, I don't think you could do that.
But yeah, and if there's something that y'all think we missed, or something that we said that you might agree or disagree with, let us know. We're always, it's an ever-changing list of things to know, especially as time goes on and these cars get older. Like, our oldest car here on the premises is 67 years old, and a lot has changed since 1959 or 64, 70, 63, 81. Like, these cars are dinosaurs, and so you always want to just be prepared, be ready, and enjoy it. And that's one of the best things about these cars, is being able to enjoy it by yourself or with people, or going to shows and making memories. Because
there's for me, and I know others also agree, there's nothing like driving an old Volkswagen, and just the feeling you get of knowing you're not going to get there fast and being able to enjoy the vehicle you're driving.
Right.
And and you know, all the cool waves and the thumbs up that you get from people are you know,
It can
the
make your day.
dreaded gas station conversation of, I used to have a Volkswagen, it had a, yeah, my 81 Westie had a Carmen Ghia motor in it, according to the previous owner.
Right, or you know, someone had one just like it, but you know, oh, I had
Yeah,
one just like that one,
but,
but
and it was a
blue.
1979, and I'm like, yeah, just like it. Yeah, you kind of disagree with
You
it.
can just kind of, you know, you just wave, smile, whatever. But yeah, I think that's
You're offering them a opportunity to reminisce about their memories of Volkswagens, which,
right.
yeah,
A lot of people have.
share the wealth.
Right. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, subscribe.
And that's it.
And that's it.
Phone's ringing.
So I'll see you on the next one.